2011 Ultimate Builder Custom Bike Show in Daytona Beach, Florida. We're talking with Steve Galvin of Wicked Steel, and he's brought us a freestyle class bike. Let's take a moment, Steve, and tell me about your background.
Well, my background begins actually in the music business. I've been playing in bands and doing music since I was in junior high school, and all along I've always been mechanical. I like to build things, had race cars and motorcycles, and lately life has sort of transitioned a little bit away from the music and more into fabricating motorcycles.
What were you trying to accomplish with this build?
Well, with this build, I had a number of goals in mind. One is I was looking for a platform for a number of designs that I'd been trying to incorporate into a build, and I was looking to create something, I call it Area 51, that looked like it either came from the future or from someplace else. Kind of alien technology kind of a concept, because I had planned on having aspects of this bike that nobody else has ever done.
What was your vision for this bike?
My vision for this bike was truly something that looked like it was out of this world.
And your inspiration?
My inspiration, sci-fi movies would be one. It became an organic experience. Each part of the bike just kind of told me where it wanted to go. It wasn't like I had done a drawing and this is what the bike is going to look like when it's all done. I do things a little bit more of in an organic kind of a way, where one thing creates another thing, and I just kind of let the metal tell me what it wants to be.
Let's talk about the fabrication. Let's start at the front end and work our way back, and
okay.
Once we're all the way to the back, then we'll pick up the engine. All right?
The front end is a design that I did sketch out on a napkin, the kind of the basic concept of it. I had to teach myself SolidWorks in order to fabricate some of the components of the front end, like the swing arms. Getting the rake and trail combination to work properly so that it was safe and would handle well was a mathematical exercise in and of itself. The legs are chrome moly tubing that are boxed with 16 gauge steel. The rest of the components, the swing arms, are billet aluminum, and there's air adjustable shocks and aluminum trees.
All right, let's go to the handlebars.
Handlebars, I really wanted to incorporate a GPS system into the bike because I hadn't seen anyone do it, and I figured if technology is what I'm featuring on this bike, why not go with the most current technology for a speedometer, and you get a GPS too. And it runs a slideshow of the build, and it'll even play music if it wanted to, but that's what's going on with that. I had the frame built for me by ProTube Frameworks. It's 45 degrees in the neck, 6 inches of stretch in the front end, another 5 inches of stretch between the transmission and the rear wheel, and oil bag is built into the down tubes, holds about 6 quarts of oil. And as you can see, the gas tank flows right in, all the sheet metal work all fits together in a fairly seamless manner.
Now we'll work back to the seat.
Okay. The seat was built by Simo Seats out of Florida. I thought he did a fantastic job. He even incorporated the sort of texture of a Klingon forehead in the middle of the seat. That's kind of what's going on there. Again, I wanted something that was not an ordinary, typical black leather seat.
Let's go to the rear fender and swing arm.
Rear fender started off as just a typical 330 fender blank that ended up cutting out an interesting design and then raising these panels to give it three-dimensional flair to it. Same with the swing arm. The swing arm, I added these fins high and low again to give sort of that craft look to it. I really wanted it to look like a motorcycle version of a spaceship, if it were. And that's why I put in so many LEDs in the swing arm and illuminating the engine, and in the front end using the same metal mesh throughout to have continuity from front to back in all of the metalwork, including the grills on the exhaust system. Everything uses the same extruded metal, so it's consistent throughout the bike.
Let's talk about the motor.
The motor started off as an Ultima El Bruto 120, puts out 130 horsepower, 130 foot-pounds of torque. The cylinders and heads have been significantly customized. Again, that was one of my designs that I wanted to incorporate into the bike, just to give it a much beefier, more unique look. Same with the rings that go around the rocker boxes. That was another product that I designed because once the cylinders and heads were done, the motor just looked so huge and the rocker boxes so puny, and I wanted to tie in the beveled panels that are throughout the bike. So again, it's tying the design of the motor into the design of the motorcycle and having consistency throughout.
Was that all done with SolidWorks again?
Yes, those are done in SolidWorks. The grips are one-off. The foot pegs, shift levers, shift and brake levers, a lot of the parts on this bike, axle block covers, were all pieces I designed on the computer.
Let's talk about the transmission. Is that a Baker?
Transmission is a Baker transmission. It's one that they make OEM for a Big Dog, and because of that it has a proprietary mounting system which created its own little obstacle in fabrication. I was thinking I'd be able to bolt it right onto a standard Harley type transmission mount, but no. Big Dog has their own, so I basically cut that section out of the frame and reworked it so that that transmission would work. And the primary is also started off as a Baker primary designed for the Big Dog motorcycles.
What about the trans brake?
Well, actually, it doesn't have a trans brake. It has a sprotter in the back.
Oh, sprotter, okay.
So you're using the sprocket as your brake. I figure you got to have a sprocket anyway. Might as well make it do double duty.
On the outside of the transmission cover there's a wire going through that. Is that part of the speedometer, or?
Where, here or down?
Right down there.
That's with a clutch.
Oh, clutch.
Yeah, unfortunately they only make that transmission for a cable clutch, so I had to use a conversion from hydraulic hand controls to a slave cylinder to pull the cable for the clutch on there. So it goes hydraulic to a slave cylinder to a mechanical cable the rest of the way.
Easy to overlook that one.
Huh?
Easy to overlook that one.
Yeah. Well, the same as the shift linkage. You see no shift linkage on this bike. It's all inside the frame. You don't see any rear brake linkage from the foot controls in the front, so it keeps it very clean, very sanitary. With each bike that I build, I strive to make more parts disappear, as many as possible.
Let's talk about you making the chain disappear.
Well, that was sort of the last thing I did on the bike. Once I had it all together, I realized that, geez, with that extra 5 inches of stretch in the frame, there's a 130 link chain, and that was a lot of ugly chain to look at. So I decided I'm going to bite the bullet, spend the money that it takes to machine the pieces, the link covers that cover each link in the chain. They're mounted with, let me start again. There's 3 forms of attachment with the links. They're press fit, there's an epoxy, and there's a set screw on the back of each one. I've had this bike at about 85 miles an hour so far, and nothing's come loose, nothing's come off, and that was an important thing, that not only does it look good, but functionally it works, and you're not going to end up killing the person behind you because these covers are flying all over the place.
Well, you only have 130 of them anyway.
Yeah, well, you know.
Steve, let's talk about paint.
Well, paint was probably one of the most challenging parts of the bike, because this was the point where I had to bring somebody else in with a skill that I don't have to airbrush and put the icing on the cake, so to speak. And the point of the paint was to not be a very, very busy paint job, but to really accentuate all the different panels, and that's why each one is highlighted, to show off how many facets there are to this tank. You know, there's a tremendous amount of metal work involved in this, and the most important purpose of the paint job was really to accentuate the metal work rather than being a mural type of a paint job. And by the same token, I wanted it to still have a very modern, spacecrafty kind of a feel, and I feel he did a really, really excellent job in achieving that.
Who would you like to thank on helping you with this build?
Well, I would like to thank the painter, who took a tremendous amount of time taping and retaping until he got a design that really worked for the bike and achieved what we were both trying to achieve creatively. I'd like to thank my friend Will for all of his tireless help, always willing and ready to do whatever needs to be done to get the job done, and that's an important thing to have. And once again, Picard USA for the wheels. Each spoke of the wheels is the shape of the gas tank, and in between each spoke is the shape of the rear fender. So these are one-off wheels, a multi-part 7-piece wheel, and this is the first time they'd ever done a wheel of that ilk, and I'm very happy with what they did.
Steve, if somebody'd like to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
They can go to my website at wickedsteel.com, wickedsteel.com, or I can be reached by phone at 727-637-7114.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.